Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to every one of you who have took the time on Saturday evening to join us. I'm saying good evening, good afternoon because many of you would be from a different zone. I, Professor Monica, welcome you all on the behalf of Birla Institute of Management Technology and QK Rishi. The topic that we are going to discuss today in this webinar is very contemporary and interesting. I support my statement by presenting few facts. Goldman Sachs recently announced that they could introduce quantum algorithm to price financial instrument in as soon as 5 years. Honeywell anticipated that quantum will form a $1 trillion industry in the decades ahead. Gartner surveys found that 44% of the enterprises expect quantum to have a substantial impact on business in the next 3 to 5 years. The speakers will add more to it. It is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Professor Monika Aggarwal, professor at IIT Delhi. Her research spans quantum computing, array signal processing, medical signal processing, communication, etc. She has developed and transferred technology in these areas to Snow Study Establishment, Department of Telecommunication, Bharti Airtel, Naval Physical, and many more. She has published over 50 papers in the top journals and conferences. She obtained her PhD from IIT Delhi and has worked with Uppsala University, Sweden, and Hughes Software System. I welcome you, ma'am, on behalf of Birla Institute of Management Technology.
Thank you, Monica. Thanks a lot. I share the name with you, so don't get confused.
No, ma'am. It's my pleasure that I share name with you.
Yeah, same here.
Thank you.
Without wasting the time, I might start.
No, ma'am. Let me introduce all the speakers and then we'll continue.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I have a pleasure to introduce my second speaker, Mr. Sriram, Program Director at Johnson Control USA. He is an IT Program Director who has worked in Johnson Control, SAS, Volkswagen America, and Computer Science Corporation. He has a unique blend of strong technical background and in-depth knowledge of key functional areas like logistics, manufacturing, finance, you name it, and he have it. He has a global experience in leading diverse teams in developed and developing regions and leading them to implement complex IT programs. He has experience in developing end-to-end ERP implementation projects. So I, Monica, on behalf of BIMTech, welcome you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for the kind introduction, Professor Monica.
It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. V Subramaniam, IBM Quantum Ambassador, IBM Research. He is an experienced leader in quantum computing and artificial intelligence with a demonstrated history of innovation and product creation. Strong researchers who had developed new products in DA and AI. He has over 35 granted patents and is an IBM Master Innovator. He has published over 150 papers in top conferences and journals. He obtained his PhD from IIT Delhi. Currently, he is in the location head for IBM Research in Delhi and Singapore. I welcome you, sir, on behalf of BIMTech.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Now, I introduce the moderator, Professor S.S. Dube, a participating academician with 35 years of industry experience in IT services, leading world-class organizations such as IBM and Tata Group. He has written more than 16 books. He has published 12 academic books and taught over 10,000 students as visiting professor at leading B schools like IIM Lucknow, IIM Indore, SP Jain, XLRI Jamshedpur, etc. He has managed mega IT transformation consulting and delivery projects of 200 plus MUSD budgets and 3,500 plus team across multiple geographies. At present, he is a professor and head of IT area and chairperson Center of Online Study. I welcome you, sir, on behalf of BIMTech. I hand over the session to the moderator, Professor S.S. Dube, to take it forward. Sir, you are muted.
Yeah. So thank you, Monica, for a wonderful introduction. And I welcome once again our very, very illustrious panel. As the participants would know that two of our panelists are from the United States. And so we are, and there are many of the attendees who may be on the different time zones. This a very would be very early for our panelists, but they have taken their time off. And we are trying to discover something. We are trying to discover a new technology. Like it happens as always that the new technology comes as a very mystery, and then it becomes a commodity. So we are somewhere about quantum computing at the same stage. It is not known to general people, and what we intend to do in next 45 to 50 minutes is to listen to these erudite people who will tell us what it is, how it is going to impact our industry, what are the use cases. And it is a precursor to the 3 month long certificate program, which we are going to launch in January. And those of you who are interested, we'll give you the details at the end. And so without further delay, I would request Professor Monica. And the way it will do is that we'll first ask Professor Monika Aggarwal from IIT Delhi to make the opening comments of about 10 to 15, 12 minutes. And after that, we will go to Sriram for his views, and then finally with Dr. V Subramaniam for his views. And then after that, we'll again come back for any question and answer. You are most welcome to write your question and answer so that we can compile them and then share it with our panelists. So, Professor Monica, over to you.
Thank you, Professor Dube. Thanks a lot for this opportunity of bringing me here towards this audience. So I want to start with what is quantum computing? Anyone in the audience, because I see there are many people who have joined. So do you know what is a quantum and what is a quantum computing? I'm a teacher, so I might ask you questions again and again. So don't take me otherwise. It's a job of a teacher to ask questions. So when I was introduced to this quantum, I was also kind of thinking, what is a quantum thing? And why is it becoming so popular these days? So the quantum is going to too much. I will not go too much technical in this talk. I just want to give you an introduction of a quantum computing. I just assume that you have heard the word quantum and just kind of fascinated by this. But at the end of my talk, I hope you'll all be able to understand what is a quantum computing and how is it different from a classical computing, which we use daily in our day-to-day life. So basically, from where this journey has started and all this thing has happened, so that's what we are going to understand in this 1 hour session that we are having. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, so when I say quantum, I again ask you, what actually come to your mind? What is the word that you think is a quantum is? I just want to understand what you think a quantum is. Is quantum a something minimum amount of anything? Anything else that you think is a quantum? Large amount. Subatomic scale, quantum mechanics. Anybody else? Physics. Yeah, so people have heard this term here and there, and they understand a bit about it. That what is a quantum? A quantum bit is a two state. At one state, yes, the quantum quantity of energy. So basically, what you are saying is that quantum is a thing in physics that we understand, uncertainty and superposition. Yes. So all of you, I think, know a bit about it. So I'm just kind of trying to reinforce your learning and go a bit more. So quantum is a computing facility, which tries to make things in a faster way, in a much, much faster way. So it's a state of physics also. So it requires superconductivity, which requires a very low temperature to maintain. That is why, so this state is difficult to achieve. That is why we are still away from quantum computers. But in an algorithmic way, what is a quantum computer? It tries to solve because you are in a different state, you can solve the problem in a much, much better way. It can solve the problems which are unsolved today. That's the claim that the quantum computers make it. So can we go to the next slide? So like a multiplication, if I multiply two numbers, it's something very easy problem. So quantum is also like a high school teacher, and he doesn't want to solve a primary kid's problem. So he feels that multiplication is a primary school problem and he's not good at it. So it's like something like that. When I start teaching BTech and MTech students, I really feel difficult to teach my kids who are still in 5th grade because I am not trained for that. Similarly, the quantum computers are not trained, not designed to solve a simple problem, which is multiplication, and it takes huge amount of time to solve that problem. Whereas our classical computers are trained, are designed in such a way that they can solve this classical multiplication problem easily. So that is what a classical computer has. So it can solve a multiplication problem in a much, much faster way. But if we go next slide, if we talk about some difficult problem like factorization, which requires a real thinking, I mean, it's actually a problem which can be solved by all the iterations and so much math that can be solved by quantum computers in much, much simpler way. So quantum computers can solve this problem of 2048-bit, in 8 hours, whereas classical computer requires 4.7 billion CPU years to solve that problem. So that is what we are kind of achieving by having the quantum computer. We are trying to make some of the problems solvable, because I cannot wait for some 4.7 billion years to solve a problem. Parallel computing, what you're talking, I'm just reading the chat that I got. Somebody say that this is due to the parallel processing. No, parallel processing may not work. Even then it will take some time. So quantum is a different together game. It's a new machine that has been designed to solve this problem. And you can solve the same problem in less the amount of time that you have. So how this is going to help me? I mean, how is it going to make a difference that I can solve the factorization in 8 hours instead of 4.7 billion years? I don't. So can you go to the next slide? This can help me, in many of the physical problems that we see. Suppose I want to design some drug and I want to kind of atoms and molecules. So they have so many combinations that we have. So if in order to represent them, in order to solve the problems of them, I handle so many bits together. So the classical computer, if I want to represent a penicillin structure, will require 10 to 86 bits, such a huge number of bits it will require. Whereas the quantum computer only requires 286 qubits. So this qubits is a new term, which I'll just explain you in a couple of minutes. It's qubits. It's just a bits that we have in a classical computer. It's a bit that we have in the quantum computer. So basically the first advantage of the quantum computer that it makes the operation faster. The second advantage of the quantum computer, it can provide your representation in a much, much simpler way. I can represent some so many bits in smaller number of qubits. So I mean, so it's something like that, my shelves are always overflowing because I have so many dresses. Now all the dresses do not require that much of space, that the compression or something I have got, that I can arrange them only in smaller spaces. So my space of quantum computer provides me a better way to spacing also. So if I require less bits to save it, I can save on my computations and simulations also. Can we go to the next slide? So the real problems, there are many problems that we have, which requires where the number of bits are, a requirement is very large. We require the quantum things to take a role. Like suppose I just give you a simple example of traffic, because I live in Delhi, and the traffic is horrible. So if I want to manage the traffic, how do I do that? There's so many things, so many factors, so many vehicles. I have a big challenging problem. The challenging problem because I have so much data to take care of it. So there I can use the quantum computers and provide a real-time solution. Similarly, the drug designing and many other things are there which can help us in designing the problem in a quantum way so that the representation is compressed and the operations are faster. Next slide. Basically, now another thing which I want to talk about is the cryptography. Now, this factorization is a very important thing that quantum computer does. It makes my quantum computer. So people say that the quantum computer is a bane or not, because I could do the factorization in a much faster way. I can break my cryptography. So all the bank transactions which have been secured because of the better factorization was not possible now, because if you know it, all the bank transaction that we used to do was safe because of the cryptography. And that is because a large numbers could not be factorized in given number of time. But quantum computers are making that factorization easier. That can be done in real time. So all my bank transaction and all those secure communication that I had is going to become a failure now. With the advancement of quantum computer, that is kind of happening and making my life a bit tough. So I need to design ways in order to handle that. So basically, it's something like that you have a quantum computer. Now it is giving you more challenges. As we go higher and higher, we only know what are the problems and what the solutions can be there. Maybe the next slide. So basically there are a few problems that are difficult for the classical computer. So basically this has become solvable because of the quantum computers, and that has made our life simpler, and but it also made a life difficult, because now some things which we thought cannot be done by anybody, this can be done by quantum computer. So now because many things can be done by quantum computers, we need to find another ways by which we can make ourselves secure. Maybe the next slide. So what I'm trying to say is that, so there are certain things which where you have the classical computers are good, and there are certain things where the quantum computing is good. So like I said, multiplication and other things, my classical computers are good. But if I talk about very large computational intensive problems, my quantum computers play a better role in do it. So I have I have things to decide that what kind of a problem I'm solving, and then I need to decide on that. Maybe the next slide. So this Venn diagram actually tells me, so there are many problems in this world. Easy problems can be solved by both of them. Maybe classical computers are good at that. But what quantum has given you, this line extra projection which was not solvable by classical computers, or may not be solvable in real time, or in a time of like I said, it's 8 billion years. So that's not a time that even if you can solve it, it is not a real problem solution. So the quantum computer has given me that capability that I can solve the problems in a real time, real world. And I am kind of spreading my horizon to define more problems and making the things much, much easier. Maybe the next slide. So quantum do exist in nature. This is just a philosophical slide. I mean, it's everything is there in the nature. You know, I mostly I try to start my talk with the nature and the Indian mythology, but the quantum is there in the nature. So this is a bird, European bird, and it flies, it navigates using those quantum things into this. So that's there in the nature also. The next slide. So now, what is a quantum? So you have understood what quantum is, what is its things, but what is a quantum? So quantum is something, I told you, a qubit. A qubit. What is a qubit? You know, I as I said, I give my lectures with Indian mythology. So we know about Shivji. Shivji is kind of, he had a third netra. And there is something which is known as Trishanku. So bits, when you talk about, it takes only two stages, a 0 or 1. So it's on and off. But we are not always in two stages. You know, I'm not able to take a decision on every time. I am not yes always, and I'm not no always. I need to decide and I need to debate on it. And before I decide, I am in non-decisive stage. So that is what this qubit is. The qubit is that tri-state where you are not able to take a decision, which is your stage. Once you take a decision, you are into a definite stage. So this is what a qubit. And this tri-state or a non-decisive state give me an advantage. And using that, I'm getting all the advantage of the quantum computer. I have just given you a very simple analogy by which I understood this qubits, but this is how the qubits are. So this is in a nature, you know. I said everything is inspired from the nature. We all are in qubit state. So now we are trying to make our computers also into a qubit state, and that has given us a new tool to handle and design systems. Can you go to the next slide? So using this, you know, so this maze problem. If I ask my daughter to solve it, maybe she'll solve it in a faster way and then the computer. Why? Because she's in a qubit state. She has those three states that are working with her, but the classical computer does not have. So the same has been shown by this researcher, Grover, that this algorithm, this maze problem can be solved in using some properties of quantum computing in real time. So that's just people are trying to use what is of a qubit thing and trying to decide some algorithms and trying to solve it. Maybe the next slide. So that's all I wanted to say over here. So the quantum computer is new ways, that way we are trying to give to kind of represent and kind of compute, where the computation is high, where the management requires a large storage and a mix of that. The quantum computers are the solutions. So they are not doing anything different, but they are just trying to do things differently. So this way, we will be able to solve some unsolved problems which could not be solved because of the computational constraint. I end over here. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer as per the moderator's discreet. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for having me here and patiently listening to me. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, Monika. We were all soaking with your erudite speech, and it was I felt that I am back to my class.
Thank you, sir.
Very, very nice, very nice. So what
Thank
we'll
you.
do is that we'll not take up questions. I would request the participants to put the questions in the chat or the Q&A section, and our moderators will see them, and then at the end we will answer them all in one go. Okay, we'll pick up the questions. So I would now move to Sriram. So Sriram, what is your take on this? Monika has given us a lot of inputs about what it is, but what is the next step? Where do we use it more? What are the applications? So here we go.
Thank you, Professor Dube. Can you hear me okay? I just want to make sure.
Yes, yes.
So good evening, everybody. So thanks again for joining us today. So Professor Monika has, really, I'm sure, kindled your curiosity, right? She has set the stage. So I'm sure all of you are asking, okay, what's in it, right? What's in it for me? How are we going to apply it, right? So I'd like to, talk to you now about, some areas where we have started to explore. Remember, right, quantum computers are still in the genesis stage, right? They're at a very nascent stage. So, we still don't have real world applications that are there up and running, right? But we are on this path. That's why, we are so excited to get on this journey right now, because, this is something that's there, that's going to come, that's going to be part of our everyday life here in the near future. So can we go to the next slide, please? So quantum computer is a technology paradigm shift, to put it in a nutshell, right? So if you imagine, if you go back to, computers came with World War II, right? I mean, that's where, right, the whole, when they invented the nuclear weapon and all those things that happened, right? So computers really became, more, came into the real world at that point of time. But still, right, if you imagine in the 1950s and 1960s, I'm sure you've seen pictures of, PCs that are taking up, whole rooms that are available only in universities. Quantum computers kind of at that point now, right? And then, in 1980s and 90s, it really, once the advent of your personal computers came up, right? Then it became, like an everyday device for you, right? I mean, just imagine what you have in your cell phone today. The power you have on your cell phone 50, 60 years back, it used to take, 2 or 3 rooms, to get the same level of computing, right? So that's kind of where quantum computers is today, right? So it's starting, but it's going to, bring about the same kind of paradigm shift that PC computers did, the PCs did in the 80s and 90s, and of course, still, right? We're still living through it, right? I mean, with about 10 years back when smartphones came in, that again brought together, some kind of a paradigm shift here in the way we do business. Quantum computers is there now, right? So quantum computers is slowly creeping in, and soon, 2030s. Will become, if you kind of do an analogy, right? What 19 or roundabout, the 19th century, where we were, right? So that's where quantum computers, like 2030 quantum computers, would be where, your personal computers was in 1990, right? If you imagine that decade, 1990 decade, that's kind of where the 2030 decade will be for quantum computers. Next slide, please. So, what are some of the applications, right? So what we're going to do now is, walk you through some of the areas where the quantum computing application is being explored again, and it will soon have an impact, right? So we'll start off with agriculture, right? So we're having this concept of clean fertilizers. Today, producing fertilizers take a very dirty process, right? It pollutes the atmosphere, right? But if you look at it in nature, right, bacteria, use quantum process to create fertilizers without any carbon emissions, right? So now a quantum computer can adopt this model and basically use the same kind of model that's used in nature today. Like Professor Monika said, it's there in nature, right? So we are trying to take that. If you can take that and simulate that in technology and use the technology that nature already has, we would be able to not only be efficient, we would also be able to, reduce the amount of footprint, the carbon footprint and the pollution we as humans, right, cause to nature. So So this is one classic application where, in the field of agriculture, we're looking at using quantum computers to basically produce fertilizers in a very clean way. Next slide, please. So there's this concept of material informatics, right? Again, it's a whole new field where new materials are being developed, by quantum computers for energy efficient devices, right? Again, we as humans consume so much energy, all the materials that you use, all the way from your phones to any kind of electronic devices, right? So just imagine, if we could come up with way more energy efficient devices, our carbon footprint across, all the devices that we use would be reduced significantly. So traditionally, you had to use, chemical reaction by either running experiments and observing the results of experiments and calculating them, right? That's how traditionally we do it. But in material sciences, we don't need to do that. We basically use machine learning and simulation to basically come up with and develop new materials. Next slide, please. So, and we already have, companies are already looking at it, right? So Daimler now is using quantum computers to simulate new battery chemistry to come up with, more energy efficient battery, which are not only more powerful, but most importantly, they use way less harmful ingredients, right? And then Mitsubishi, they are using, quantum computers to find OLED materials that are more flexible and scalable. And most importantly, like we said, right, use far less energy. So companies are already exploring it. I mean, right now, like I said, we're in the genesis, the tip of the iceberg there, but it's out there. So, you would see the impact of quantum computers in your day-to-day world by, technologies and materials that will develop using quantum computing in the very near future. Next slide, please. So the other major area is finance, right? So financial systems are complex and hard. I mean, basically, if you imagine, I used to keep telling my dad this. My dad used to say, oh, in our companies, when we set some kind of, a standard or policy, we don't change it too often. We used to stick to it, right? I used to tell my dad, that's not the world these days, right? People are exposed to so much information, right? So what happens is, right, humans are very unpredictable, right? There are so many things that are unpredictable in world today that it's very difficult for you to do any financial instruments and modeling, right? And of course, if you look at other natural things too, right? Rain, floods, and all those things, right? So it's very difficult. So what quantum computing does is they help us, right? If you look at, right from, loan scoring, fraud detection, options pricing, quantum computers really help you simulate and come up with a better plan, when in the financial world, right? So financial planning is huge. So if you look at banks, tax departments, rating agencies, they're all exploring quantum computing to address various financial problems. Next slide, please. And again, we'd like to present some example, right? So today, several banks, they are already exploring quantum computing. I mean, so we have Bank of America technologist who says that, quantum computing would be as revolutionary in 2020s as smartphones were in the 2010s, right? So Standard Chartered Bank is exploring quantum computing for portfolio simulation. JP Morgan is using quantum computing for financial modeling, including option pricing and risk analysis. Next slide, please. The other major area, and I think Professor Monika kind of touched upon this too, right? It's supply chain and logistics, right? And especially now, I mean, like Johnson Control is a manufacturing company. And right now, because of the pandemic, we are facing huge supply chain issues, right? I mean, if you imagine before the pandemic, right, the supply chain was running like a well-oiled machine, right? We kind of took it for granted. But now what happens is, when you have supply chain nodes that are impacted, the ripple effect of that, it's just, nobody anticipated that. So right now we are having so many challenges with supply chain and logistics. So quantum computing is going to help you. I mean, it's going to say, hey, you know what? if this particular supply chain node fails, what are the other options? What's the impact going to be, right? So the power that quantum computer is going to bring to the table, it's going to make these simulations and planning way more real time. See, that's the problem. I mean, if you go look at the supply chain issues, I do not know what my supply chain issues would be, 2-3 weeks down the line, right? Because things are changing so fast that I have no idea of, okay, how many materials should I order for my plant to be producing the products even 4 or 5 weeks down the road, right? Because things are changing so much in the world today. So if you look at some real world examples here, again, Sydney and Japan Rail, they actually use quantum computing to deploy resources far more accurately, right? And they were able to go and look at long-term impacts of the pandemic. ExxonMobil is using to find optimum, routes for their, ships, right? So again, right, companies are exploring it now. It's not there yet. But that's what is more exciting about this, right? So because we are here in the cusp of this new technology, and soon, right, we will be able to use it to solve real world problems. Next slide, please. And there are a lot of other areas where quantum computing could be applied, right? Electronics, new kinds of antibiotics, right? Biodegradable plastics, protein folding. So there are tons of applications that are out there. So we know, right, today, right, AI and ML, I know that's big there, right? So we think that's changing the world today. But quantum computing is truly going to take this to the next level, because when computers become so powerful, the AI and ML simulations are going to, make it, real time, right? That's where the biggest impact of quantum computing is going to be felt. So initially, right, so there are going to be a lot of hybrid processes, what we call, right? So you're going to use both the classical method and the quantum method, quantum computer are going to kind of coexist, right? And then slowly, as quantum computers become more available, more, this technology becomes more real time, more easily available, you're going to find what you call as classic pure quantum computing, solutions out there in the market. Next slide, please. So how do you get quantum ready, right? So I'm sure that's the question that's all going to be in everybody's head, after this, session here, right? So companies, they think that, they could use quantum computing to increase their revenue, and also achieve a competitive advantage, right? Just imagine, in the 1980s and 1990s, right? We've heard so many stories of companies who jumped, ahead of the line and adopted personal computers and other computing in their businesses. So they are today flourishing because what they did, 50, 40 years back, right? Quantum computers is going to be something similar, right? Companies that are going to really, get innovative and adopt this are going to have an edge over their competitors in the next 50, 60 years, right? So they're saying 45% of the enterprises accept quantum computers to have a substantial impact on the businesses in the next 3 to 5 years per Gartner. Next slide, please. So general, right? So how do you, we look at quantum computers, getting ready for it, 3 steps, right? The first is to skill up, right? That's the number one step in any kind of new technology, right? Is to help you understand what it is about and how it can be applied and build the skills up, right? If you imagine, I keep forgetting the names, right? I think it was called an IIT, right? When I was in high school, an IIT was huge, right? We had everybody scrambling and going in to get these, computer programming courses, right? That's where quantum computing is now, right? So with Krishi, that's what we are planning to bring these courses to the table here for our customers to truly help, get ready for the quantum world, right? And then once that comes up, then you would go and you apply, you figure out ways to, through experimentation, how do you apply the quantum data? the quantum computing on your data and find out, how these applications, and then you would build a quantum strategy to really truly take, your businesses to the quantum world and to the next step. Basically, the way we see it, businesses will need to adopt this to stay relevant in the next 40, 50 years. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand over it back to the moderator. So again, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. I'm being forward to working with you here in the near future.
Okay, very, very, very nice, Sriram. You have given us a very bird's eye view of the kind of applications where we can look up to. And in my mind, it was playing that, let's say if the rocket engine would not have been discovered, how would we have gone to moons and Mars and so on, the other places? Because the power of the propulsion enabled us to find new application. So now something similar is going to happen when we will have a lot of computing power and to solve unsolvable problems which we have still not visualized. So very nice summary, and we'll come back to you for more question and answer. Meanwhile, just review the questions in the chat, and then when we come back after Subhu's talk. So Dr. Subramaniam, you are the ambassador and evangelist, and IBM has been a known organization, and I share a common lineage with you of something trying to bring it something new. So just educate us, where do we go from here?
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Dube. It's really a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here and speaking to the audience here. So like you said, the quantum, offers us a wonderful opportunity. There is a new era coming. And as we saw in the talks by Professor Monika and Sriram, so there are definite differences in the way this computation happens, and that gives us a big opportunity. And there are already, applications like Sriram mentioned, where this is getting utilized. So what I'm now going to talk about is, what does the future look like, especially in terms of the roadmap of quantum computers themselves, right? So
Vijay, you're on mute. Dr. Venkat, you're on mute.
Hello. Yeah, sorry. Okay. So quantum computers today are, at the same level where classical computers were in the 40s, 50s, in that era, right? But in 2023, for example, that's like 70, 80 years later, we see so much advancement happening, right? So this video conference that we are having, social media, so many different applications have come up. It is expected that the quantum evolution will be much faster. It's not going to take you, 70 years, 80 years, but it's going to get compressed, So you're going to see the evolution of these quantum computers much faster than what happened in the case of the classical computers. So this is the roadmap, okay? So today, in 2021, if you look at the bottom, the Eagle processor, the 127 qubit machine was released by IBM last week. And that is the most powerful quantum computer today. By 2023, there will be 1,000+ qubit computer available. Okay, so this is the roadmap of how the hardware itself is evolving from 27 qubits in 2019 to 127 today and 1,000+ in 2023, right? So you're seeing this is the growth chart. And so let's look at how do you measure the performance. I'll not go very much deep into this. One is the scale, the number of qubits. So like I said, today we are at 127 qubits, and in 2 years' time, we'll be at 1,000+ qubits. The second is the quality of these qubits, which is measured using quantum volume. The quantum volume is doubling every year. So this year we are at 256, and it's been shown that the quantum volume, I don't know if you know the Moore's law, which was for classical computers. The Moore's law, will come to that. So similar to that, the quantum volume has been doubling every year. And the third is the speed. The speed has also been increasing. You know, how fast can the quantum computer work? So these are the three metrics. The quantum volume, which we talked about, right? So just in a very simple way to tell you, it's a combination of the number of qubits and the depth at which you can, how deep can your program be? How big can your program be? So that's what the quantum volume is. And as I said, quantum volume is matching Moore's law. So we've heard that Moore's law has been slowing down because we are reaching a level where the atomic, we're reaching atomic scale. But what is now taking on is the new Moore's law, which is quantum volume, which has been doubling, as I said. So we looked at a lot of applications that Sriram talked about, right? So let's just see what this means, So the one thing that Monika, she talked about, this, the factorization problem, right? Factorization, the day quantum computers are able to do factorization, well, it's been shown that they can, but there aren't powerful enough computers today. But the day that happens, all of today's, cryptography is going to fail. So what does that mean? All the medical data, let's say the defense data, the light combat aircraft is being made today. The product is being developed, it'll get launched. Somebody could just store that data. The day the cryptography gets broken, they are able to see what that is. So LCA is going to be there for the next 20, 30 years. If the day cryptography gets broken, any enemy can look at, those records and see how, the design documents, all of that will become available, right? So there are a lot of these things like trade secrets, like, the healthcare records. All of this data is at risk the day quantum computing breaks the current cryptography, right? So what is the good thing about this? The good thing is there is now quantum safe cryptography that's becoming available. The bad thing, as I said, is all of the cryptography has to change. It has to change quickly before quantum computers can break it. So what is the opportunity? The opportunity is for people to change along with quantum computers to bring these better methods to do the cryptography, right? So that's one. The other is, so Professor Monika talked about penicillin, right? So which is, so molecular interactions are a quantum mechanical phenomena. And like she said, no matter how many bits you have, the biggest supercomputer that you have today or in the future, it is not going to be able to simulate a molecule because molecules follow quantum mechanics. And that can only be simulated using quantum computers, right? So with 18 qubits, you can simulate methane. And then this cyclohexane, which is, plastic, for example. Adamantane, this is an antiviral drug. Protein interactions. So what does this mean? So like Sriram mentioned in that, he talked about materials. So materials ranging from fertilizers to medicines to plastics to energy, new batteries, all of these things can now be simulated as quantum computers become more and more powerful. So I'll tell you a little bit about plastic. So plastic was discovered in the year 1869. Okay. So before plastic, do you know what people used to use as plastic? They used to use the tusk of the elephant. They used to use the shell of the tortoise. They used to use the, the rhinoceros horn. So all of these things were used as plastic. Then in 1869, John Wesley Hyatt, he derived using cotton fiber and camphor a new material called celluloid, which was the first plastic. And do you know how this was advertised? This celluloid was advertised, there were advertisements all over the place saying that now tortoises will not suffer, now elephants will not suffer, we'll not have to kill them, they are all safe. Here is a new material which can, has those properties. And billiard balls, which were made of ivory, and that time billiards became a very popular game, and more elephants got killed because people were playing billiards. So suddenly, after John Wesley Hyatt discovered this new material, these billiard balls were made out of this new material called celluloid, as I said, right? Now, 150 years later, what are we saying? We are saying, oh, plastic is hurting the animals. We need to save humanity. And if you look at some of the pictures, of sea animals, they have, they ingest plastic. Cows in our on the streets in Delhi, for example, ingest plastic, and all of them fall sick. Very, very sorry state of things for them, right? So what does quantum computer offer in this era now? So it allows us to now, simulate new kinds of plastics as a way of, replacing this plastic, which is not biodegradable, which is causing the, harm to the environment. And how does that do it? Today, if you are to come up with new materials, you have to do it in a test tube. You have to pour, materials, you have to pour chemicals and do all of that. But what does, this new way of doing it allows you to actually simulate this on a computer, right? So I think I'm going to run out of time, and I want to leave some time for question answers. So what I'll just tell you is that today so up to 2016 was what was called the experimental phase for quantum computers. 2016, IBM made the first quantum computer available over the cloud. So today, any of you can go onto the cloud and actually start using a quantum computer. The quantum computers that are available today are called the NISQ computers, the noisy intermediate stage quantum. What that means is today's quantum computers are noisy. The qubits that you have there are noisy qubits. Okay, so they are error prone. Fault tolerance is something that's coming up. People are doing research. We don't know when that's going to happen, but when that happens, you're going to see a lot of these applications, people are going to be able to solve all the problems that, Professor Monika and Sriram said. People have started exploring using the NISQ systems, right? So NISQ is the era in which we are. And as soon as we enter that fault tolerant era, it's expected to take off. And I talked about this, so I'll not go into this, but I'll just end with this slide, which is, we talked about this 2023, when we are going to see this 1,000+ qubit machine. And at least I believe that's going to be the turning point. That's where you're going to see, real quantum applications, which are going to give out that promise that is there. The applications that people are exploring, they haven't yet hit that stage where they have surpassed classical computers. But I believe 2023 is where, we are going to see that, and that's not very far. Many of you are already in college right now. Maybe you'll graduate this year, next year, the following year. And by that time, quantum computers are expected to be ready. And like Sriram said, we come from an era when computers were not very prevalent. We used to go to a computing institute and learn programming there. And now you don't even have to do that. You can actually sit and do everything on your laptop here on the cloud. Quantum computers are available over the cloud today. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop there and, back to you, Professor Dube.
So thank you, Dr. Subramaniam. I know this like any other emerging technology, the Amara's law gets applied, where initially it will seem to be not picking up, but suddenly it will go exponentially. So somewhere the same thing is going to happen after 2023 or whatever time frame you are mentioning it. So very, very deep presentation, and coming from you, let's say it was a treat for all of us to listen to it. So for our listeners here, in the interest of time, I would just go over to all our panelists and ask them to pick up one or two questions for them to answer it. And after that, we are also, as I said in the beginning, we are planning a for 50 hours program starting in January, where you will have more chance to interact, go down deeper. The 1 hour was today was just a teaser. One question I have, and I will throw to any one of you to answer, is what is the job opportunities? Okay, is it a job? It's only meant for only high tech nerds sitting in IBM research lab, or it is going to be opportunity for lesser mortals like us?
No. Maybe I'll start and the others can join in, right? So there is definitely an opening for people with deep skills, so whether it's physics, chemistry, maths, engineering, all of these people have, an opportunity. But I think, sorry, it's raining and there's a lot of thunder. I hope you can hear me. Okay. But in any technology, it's the first people who should be adopting it are supposed to be the managers, because they create that strategy for your for the organization. They are the people who are going to set that vision and path. And that's why, I'm really happy. This is the first time I'm actually giving a talk at a management institution, because I've always given a technical talk before this. But I strongly believe that it's the managers who are going to drive this technology, because they are the decision makers. They are the people who embrace, who decide what happens next. How do you, solve this problem ABC for my company? How do I get that competitive advantage? So if today, as a person, technical person, if I'm able to convince a manager to say that you need to invest in this, I would be very happy and say that, okay, that's excellent. But just to say, where are people getting hired? People are getting hired for evangelism, which is, so there was a job I just saw recently where Amazon had an opening for people to go and talk to companies about why they should be adopting, quantum. Totally a non-technical job. Just go and talk about, why they should be adopting, right? And then there are the whole spectrum is open, from non-technical managerial to the deep technical physicists and people who are actually, building these quantum computers.
Okay, so whole spectrum is available, and just to remind all my panelists that the Birla Institute of Management Technology, this is the word. It is with very few institutions in the country. Either they are Institute of Management or Institute of Technology. But we carry a unique name where we have got both management as well as technology. So thank you for enlightening us. So I would go back to Sriram and Monika. I mean, you can choose your own questions. And I know we have got only one submission from each one of you. Whichever question you want to answer it. And after that, we will conclude our session.
I think I can go first.
Yes,
I'm
please.
prompted by a question by a 9th grade student, and the student is asking me, what should I study in the quantum computing? I'll definitely advise that student, please don't study quantum computing, study your physics, chemistry properly. Once you understand the basics of physics and chemistry, anything will sail through. There will be a chapter on quantum in your physics book. So try to understand the atoms, molecules, their structure, their behavior. In fact, I'll take this platform to address all the students who are in 10th and 12th. As I teach in IIT, what I find is the students are coming with the high class questions and they are missing their basics. And because of that, the foundation is not good. So please keep your foundation strong. If the foundation is strong, a building can be built. So I just wanted to answer that. It may not be related to the forum, but I thought it's a right forum to, maybe because the student is interested in attending it. So please study your physics, chemistry, and maths very diligently. You have time to understand quantum. Good, you are understanding it. So once you understand, it will fall into the place very diligent. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Monika. And it is only the fact professor like you who can pick up the most basic question to answer everyone. Okay, Sriram, what is your take? What do you think is?
There's a question around here with respect to cost, right? I mean, so I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking Dr. Venkat could help us here out too. I mean, but I think, you know, the way things are going, right, from a cost perspective, I think quantum computing is going to look very different from the journey we took in the PC world, right? Because thanks to cloud computing, basically the infrastructure that we've built for, you know, the classic computing is going to basically leapfrog many of the steps that we went through with respect to the physical computing, you know, the journey, right? So we quickly, like, you know, we already have quantum computing available on the cloud. So I think the cost, from a cost perspective, you know, your classic hardware cost perspective is going to look very different. I mean, I still remember, right, that the first PC I had to go buy, it was like $2,500. So I mean, it was just ridiculous. I mean, I can get 10 times more powerful than that for less than, you know, $250, $300 now, right? So I'm thinking that the cost journey is going to look very, very different with respect to quantum computing. I don't know, Dr. Venkat, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, so I think you hit the hammer on the nail, you know, because of cloud, what has happened is quantum computers, in fact, are available for free for a user. You know, you can actually go and start on IBM Quantum Experience. You can go and start using an actual quantum computer for free. Okay, and as Sriram mentioned, you know, you can do a pay-per-view usage. You know, you pay as you go along, and if you look at the rates, they are very, very reasonable and comparable to what you would use on, let's say, AI, ML, any of those systems.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Venkat and Sriram, all of you. We have passed our scheduled time, and what I will ensure to the participants that all those who have registered, and we will send them all the questions we have taken from the chat, and we'll try to prepare a short document to answer your queries. And if you are interested, obviously the next step is to enroll yourself for the program which we are going to launch. I would pass it on to Ashish. Ashish, can you start the process of the certificate and QR code scanning? And
sure, sir. Thank you so much, and thank you all the speakers. I mean, it was such a wonderful session from each of you. And there's a lot to learn from. And thank you to all the participants, all 120 of you who took the time out to join. And I hope that you've learned you know, a lot from the experts who spoke here. And as an appreciation, as a token of appreciation for your time and patience, we are going to give you a certificate which is powered by a company called Hyperstack. And if you can just scan the QR code which you see on the screen, you will receive a certificate in your email from the email from which you have registered for this webinar, and you will receive it shortly.
And just to add to our panelists, the Hyperstack Praveen is attending from Australia, and this is a immutable, verifiable certificate on blockchain platform. So this is one of the first initiative where the certificate is being given, which is immutable in the blockchain platform. Praveen, if you're there, yeah, if you can speak out, Praveen.
Yeah, so I'm just unmuting Praveenji.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dube sir. Yeah, well said. It's a blockchain-based certificate. Register now. Anyone who can just pick up your mobile phone, scan it, put in your name and email address, and you will get the certificate quickly. Please take time to go and share it on your social media platform, and it's verifiable internationally, any part of the world. Thank you.
So while this registration is certification is going on, the participant can stay back. But I would like to thank all the panelists and Curishi and for Hyperstack and all the organization, all my team who have been working for the last month, over a month in organizing this social media team and all our COOLS team, Center of Online Studies of BIMTech. I am personally got emboldened. I felt that I'm venturing into an unknown area of quantum computing, but the way Dr. Venkat, Sriram, and Professor Monika has told, this is the technology for managers for tomorrow. So we will utilize this opportunity and then go down deeper, sir, and I will take input from all of you. So with these words, I will stop here, and the process of thanking once again to all of the participants, all the faculty here, and let the certification process go on.
Sir, special thanks to Prabha ma'am for organizing all these things.
I was just going to say that Prabha Narayan ma'am has been, instrumental in the success of today's webinar. So a special shout out to Prabha Narayan ma'am.
Okay, all the best.
All right. I think attendees can.
So panelists can leave. Panelists can leave.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you on behalf of BIMTech. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Ashish, we can stay for any
sure, sir.
For any certification or for participants. Did we float the registration, or we already have the
yeah. Yes, sir. So, I am very happy that there was a lot of attendees and some of them are still here. So I'm sure a lot of them will be interested in, pursuing the certification which we have to offer. So as next steps, what we're going to do is kind of send them or personally email each one of them a brochure of the certification program, which is upcoming in the month of January. With all the details of the duration, costs, etc. And we'll take it forward from there.
Okay. And thank you, Prakhar. Prakhar has been silently helping and doing all the work.
Great. So I think we can log off now.
No, I think we have 91 still might be doing it. Let everyone will log off.
84. It was very heartening to see such a good response, that too on a Saturday evening. Really nice.
Okay, so some people are having problem of the QR code scanning. We will send your certificate on your email.
Yeah. Is that okay, Praveenji?
Absolutely fine, sir.
Yeah, so Praveenji will email you the people who could not scan the QR code, and we can send them personal emails with their certificates.
Yes, sir, we'll do it.
Okay. So don't worry, Sandeep. Don't worry, all the participants. If you're able to do it, we were trying. There are too many loose ends. Your mobile phone, your network, QR code, all that. So don't worry. We will send the certificate on your email. QR code does not exist. Is that 10 minutes are over? Or take the link, It is working. I have just done myself.
Yeah, it's working absolutely fine. I just did it. It's working absolutely fine. So don't worry, guys. Whoever it's not working for, we will email it to you. Your certificate.
And now finally, thanks to all my COOLS team who have been working very, very hard.
Our pleasure, sir. Always a pleasure to work under you.
Especially Deepak, and then Ayushi and all the people who have made sure that Facebook Live is also going on. Okay, so shall we close?
Yes, sir. I'll end the session. Deepak, if you're there, if you can just end the session.
Thank you all. Thank you all participants. It was very enriching session. And after a long time, I felt it was a very enriching session.
Absolutely. Thanks, Praveenji, for staying up so late.
Absolutely pleasure. I've enjoyed it every session, sir.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.